So I've been meaning to make this video about the recount for the presidential election, but things just keep moving so fast, and was feeling under the weather, and I figured I'd wait until a couple of days to see how it went. And really, a lot of people have been talking about this recount, obviously, because it's a pretty big deal in the states that are being recounted or requested to be recounted. Now, it's not just GOP leaders that are confused and saying this is pointless. It's Democrats too, and people are questioning her motives. She got her recount in Wisconsin, but she canceled the recount in Pennsylvania because she couldn't afford the $1 million bond that was required initially to start the recount, which I think is ridiculous because she raised over, $6.5 million now? Okay, so here is the Fox News Sunday interview with Jill Stein about the recount, and I'm going to kind of break it down and criticize her. So if you're not into that, you can skip this video or whatever, but every time she says something stupid, which is pretty much every time she opens her mouth in this interview, I'm going to say something. Although I won't have to do that too much because the interviewer does a pretty good job of hammering her. Also, I'm going to put up some sources and some screenshots from various websites, including our own websites, about the recount effort and some of the people saying it's pretty much fruitless and pointless and a waste of money.
Joining us now to discuss her push for the recounts is Green Party presidential nominee Dr. Jill Stein. Dr. Stein, you say that your goal here is not to change the results of the election, but to ensure the accuracy of the count. My question is, why then did you choose 3 states that Mr. Trump won narrowly, but not a state that Secretary Clinton won much more narrowly, New Hampshire, which she won by only 3,000 votes?
Is a very good question. It is something that I have been asking myself and others a lot. And since I'm surrounded by a lot of liberals, I didn't really get a good answer. And I was surprised that the media wasn't asking this more. Because it seems like a very obvious question. It seems very partisan. And it's just strange to me. Anyways, continue.
We didn't go into New Hampshire mainly because the deadline for filing a recount had passed.
So basically you were unprepared, incompetent, and this whole thing about voter integrity is actually partisan, because if you really cared, you would have started planning this whole recount fiasco and just starting to talk about it and open discussion about it well before the election, not after the election, and certainly not filing right on the same day the deadline expires. In the case of Wisconsin, something like 90 minutes before the deadline expired. So, explain that.
But in fact, at the time that we launched the recount, 2 of the states had gone to Donald Trump. Michigan was still uncertain as to which direction it would go. And as far as I'm concerned, if we do find evidence that there's a systemic problem here with these machines, which are extremely unreliable, prone to error and human error and machine error, as well as to hacking and security breaches, if we find evidence that there is a systemic problem, we need to expand the recount, in my view. That's what the American voters are calling for.
The American voters are calling for this, particularly the voters that are going to be doing your demanded hand recount. Probably over holidays, possibly even over Christmas. I'm sure they are really just demanding that. But I don't know where she's getting this information from, because I would say most people think this recount is not going to affect anything. And it's just a waste of money. Taxpayers don't want to foot the bill, because even though she's raising this money, a lot of it is state paid for. And these machines are prone to hacking and reliable. Please explain how you hack a paper ballot and optical scanner that's not connected to the internet, in the case of Michigan and Pennsylvania.
A election result and a voting system that we can have confidence in.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Stein. Do you know the largest switch of votes in a recount in American political history?
Well, I think she knows the answer to that question, but she's not going to answer it because it's a little bit under 1,300 in Bush v. Gore in 2000. So she's going to dodge that one and then give us a bunch of theories that have never been proven instead. So I don't want to get DMCA'd, so basically I'll summarize that one portion because I don't want to show the whole video. But she goes on to talk about some blank ballots in Ohio in 2004. And then she goes on in the next part about some allegedly blank ballots in Detroit, in the Detroit area of Michigan, which doesn't surprise me because a lot of people leave portions of ballots blank, which is sometimes considered blank because they aren't cheeky enough to put in Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd for president and vice president, and the write-in like one very funny sarcastic guy did in Wisconsin.
Biggest actual switch of votes in any election in U.S. history was back in 2000 when roughly 1,200 votes were switched from Bush to Gore. We're talking about 3 states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, that Donald Trump won by more than 10,000 votes. There's not a chance in the world here, Dr. Stein, that the vote that the vote is going to change in those 3 states.
Chris, actually in Michigan, there are 75,000 votes which are blank, which are sky high compared to all other past elections. They are concentrated in Detroit. That's 75,000 votes, which may very well be machine error or human error. That is about 7 times the margin of difference in Michigan. So these results could in fact change the outcome, but we don't know that until we actually examine the evidence, and that means a hand recount.
You know, every time she says hand recount, I just hear obstructionist in my head.
Of the ballots. That is going forward in Wisconsin.
It's never happened. There's never been a 70,000 vote switch. The most there's ever been is 1,247.
If the recounts were done in time, they could affect 90,000, and in fact, in Detroit, there could very well be 75,000.
I'm talking, Dr. Stein, about recounts that actually happen, not ones that could have happened.
That's because we don't do them, and in fact, we should do them.
Yes, Jill Stein, actual recounts. And if you're so passionate about doing recounts, again, maybe you should have planned to do this before a major presidential election. Maybe you should have staked this out in 2015. You know, maybe you didn't have the money, but you could have at least talked about it. Or, I don't know, start your little fundraiser before the election. You probably wouldn't have gotten as much money, but it would have added some credibility to what you're doing now.
That's how we ensure that we have a system we can trust. And right now, as you know, Chris, cynicism and distrust is running wild. We need to address the fundamental concerns that the American voters are expressing.
I agree. We need to address the fundamental concerns of voters and the political system. Except you aren't the one to do it because you don't have any idea what you're doing. And you don't have any concept of what the voters want. I mean, it's just astounding how you can translate people not liking 2 candidates and translating that into your own pet project of voter fraud and recounts or whatever. So the interviewer on Fox takes a look at the real issue, money. Oh, and attention, obviously.
In your presidential runs, in 2012, you raised $893,000 in your presidential campaign. In 2016, $3.5 million. But for this recount, you've raised more than $6.5 million from almost 140,000 donors. Isn't that what this is really about, Dr. Stein? Using this recount to raise lots of money and build your list of supporters?
Let's be very clear. This money is going strictly into a segregated account, which can only be spent on the recount.
The thing is, though, the money isn't all going to be going towards the recount. And if there's extra money left, you have to wonder, where is it going? Because on her website, it's very vague, and I'll put up a picture of it, a screenshot, I'm sorry, of the website to show you what I mean by vague. She says that the money would go towards revamping the election system, and it's kind of vague. And I wonder what that means exactly. And I just feel like a lot of this money is going to somehow end up in her pocket one way or another because the Federal Election Commission is very vague when it comes to donations for recounts because it mainly focuses on donations for campaigns. Anyways, continue.
So this money is will be completely used, and we'll be lucky if we can cover the costs at the rate that there is a bait and switch going on here. In Wisconsin, we just saw the costs triple. So to my mind, it really underscores why we need a fundamentally secure voting system that has built-in safeguards.
So she keeps saying we need a system that has built-in safeguards and fundamentally different. And I keep coming back to this. Why didn't you do this before the election? Why didn't you start planning this years ago, or at minimum in 2015? Why are you talking about it now? Why are you initiating it now? It stinks to high heaven of opportunism, obstructionism, and just being a troll.
That should have automatic audits, recounts. We need to get rid of these voting machines, these electronic touch screens, which have been proven highly vulnerable to tampering, to hacking.
So we need to get rid of technology, is what you're saying, Dr. Stein. Okay, for voting, I think paper ballots and optical scanners is pretty foolproof in the case of Michigan and Pennsylvania, and a lot of Wisconsin. But technology is going to evolve, and eventually voting is going to be digital. So when it goes completely digital, we need to put in safeguards. But saying we need to get rid of these touch screens and these machines that are vulnerable, she sounds like a dinosaur. So anyways, continue. I cut you off there, Dr. Stein. I'm sorry.
To human and machine errors.
So the fact that you have 140,000 donors is purely coincidental, Dr. Stein?
Oh, long, awkward silence. Yeah, what about those donors? Yeah, 140,000 of them. Is that the population of America? Wait, is that even the population of the people that voted for Hillary Clinton? Wait, that's not even the population that voted for Jill Stein.
Well, put it this way. The American people have made it very clear what they want done here. Chris.
Yes, the American people have made it clear. All 140,000 of them. Or did you use the old Hillary Clinton method with foreign donors? Sorry, 140,000 pales in comparison to the 130 million people, give or take, that turned out for the election, and the 300 million plus people in the United States.
Coming out of this election,
wait. I don't think the American people. Wait, where do you get off saying the American people? Where do you get off saying that the American people are calling for this? I think the vast majority of the American people think we should accept the result of the election.
I know it's Fox, but I'm just glad someone under the category of mainstream media is hammering her.
80% of Americans said that they were disgusted with this election.
Again, she throws this 80% statistic out of 80% of Americans were disgusted with this election. And then she translates that into election integrity and voter fraud and her little recount effort. I don't know where she's getting this number from, but assuming it's right, 80% of people being disgusted with the election does not mean 80% of people want a recount or 80% of people are worried about voter fraud. So I don't know where she translates that.
And we know that about 90% of Americans do not have faith.
I don't think it was the system or demand for a recount.
This is a time that people have an entire loss of faith in our political institutions. The way that the money is coming in from small donors makes it very clear.
Oh, yeah. Money coming in from small donors. About those donors, Jill. What about your recount campaign fundraiser pet project thing? That might have been a problem with Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump was practically self-funded. he doesn't have to scratch anyone's back. So fast forwarding a little bit, and then she talks about respecting the views of the American voter. Oh, and I just love this.
It's time to respect the views of the American voter.
Well, some would say that
the
the views of the American voter were that Donald Trump was elected president.
I wouldn't say some Americans have the view that Donald Trump was elected president. I would say all Americans have the view that Donald Trump was elected president. Whether or not they like it is a completely different story. So I would say that in a more absolute tone. The people that are saying he didn't win the popular vote obviously don't understand our Constitution and any of the concerns the founding fathers had with direct democracy. We are a constitutional republic, not a democracy.
You've now decided.
Well, remember what the voters said by the Electoral College, not by the National Popular Vote.
If I may ask my question, Dr. Stein, you've now
again just making yourself look like an idiot with fundamental lack of understanding of this country and its election system, as I previously mentioned. Again, we already know how the election went, Jill Stein, but thanks for the reminder. So, skipping through a little bit, because there's about lawsuit in the United States District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania to kind of challenge that $1 million bond, which I don't understand because that's going to cost money. And then they move on to kind of her motives. How is this partisan? How is it not? And she says it's not about her. It's not about any of the other candidates, which is kind of laughable. Now, I feel like a lot of this is just feeding the troll that is Jill Stein. So, to a certain extent, we kind of have to don't feed the troll. But at the same time, I worry that some people actually see this and think it's legitimate and that she knows what she's talking about, which is why I'm doing this video. But in regards to the troll thing, I won't show the video, the Fox News video, because again, I don't want to get DMCA'd. But they say that's 10 minutes she's never had on live television before. So it is attention-seeking behavior to a certain extent. Maybe more, maybe less, I don't know. But she got 10 minutes out of it on Fox News Sunday, for whatever that's worth. And, of course, all the stuff going on, all the newspapers and whatnot reporting it, and all the weekday television reporting it. So I guess she is getting her attention, but she is a troll. They talk about how the whole point of the recount, in their opinion, and in my opinion, is to, in quote, sow seeds of doubt. He didn't win the popular election. Let's do a recount. Make him look less legitimate. And I think that was very well put. So let's take a look at what Jill Stein has said about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in the past in terms of foreign policy. Just to give you some perspective here.
And even Donald Trump and the right-wing extremism grows out of the policies of the Clintons, in particular NAFTA, which sent our jobs overseas, and Wall Street deregulation, which blew 9 million jobs up into smoke. So that's what's creating this right-wing extremism. A vote for Hillary Clinton isn't going to fix it. And one last point, which is this, that it's now Hillary Clinton who wants to start an air war with Russia over Syria by calling for a no-fly zone. We have 2,000 nuclear missiles on hair-trigger alert, and Mikhail Gorbachev, the former premier of the Soviet Union, is saying we are closer to a nuclear war than we have ever been. Under Hillary Clinton, we could slide into nuclear war very quickly from her declared policy in Syria. So I won't sleep well at night if Donald Trump is elected, but I sure won't sleep well at night if Hillary Clinton is elected. Fortunately, we have another choice other than these two candidates who are both promoting lethal policies. But on the issue of war and nuclear weapons and the potential for nuclear war, it's actually Hillary's policies, which are much scarier than Donald Trump, who does not want to go to war with Russia. He wants to seek modes of of working together, which is the route that we need to follow.
So she's not exactly pro-Hillary, and she's not pro-Trump, but she recognizes Hillary's plan would be nuclear war. So it's interesting, she's balancing election integrity, quote, quote, and nuclear war if Hillary were to somehow get into office. So it's just her motives are just really confusing, and honestly, I think they're all over the place. So one theory is that she's harvesting the emails of the donors. That sounds kind of creepy, like some horror movie or something. Anyways, this article shows the wealth of information that she's able to collect, what it's worth, and possible intentions. So put that up. I'll put that up on the screen. It's pretty interesting. And she's collected tens of thousands of quote unquote high quality donor emails. So here it says fresh email is generally $5 to $10, but donor emails can be $20 to $30. It's pretty interesting. And many of those folks will continue to give over and over again if her campaign asks. So that's certainly interesting. So this video is getting kind of long, so I'm going to cut it right here, and I'll include my sources and whatnot in the description and on the screen. And I may or may not do a part 2 sort of that keeps it updated with the recount. There's a couple of articles I saved that I was going to show, but the Fox News interview and the other stuff was just more juicy. So thanks for watching. New America Sheriff out.